Hey, this is Alex. We're going to do another Alex James Hislop diary entry content. This is going to be Alex James Hislop diary entry content, June 11th, 2019. So, these are some of the videos that I do. As a psychic medium, I'm able to discern different kinds of spirits, different kinds of psychic activity, and the kinds of themes within my process I think warrants certain kinds of video content to lament upon some of the events and turbulence, conflict, and decent some of the positivity and enlightenment that happened at times. There's been some changes to a certain degree. I am advocating to be changed the way my main spirit guides indicated on film spiritually, the way my main spirit guides indicated. I and others, Divine Main Spirit Guides, are advocating for the disclaimers that Main Spirit Guides indicated in regards to this market application, etc. Divine Main Spirit Guides pertaining to the Alex James Hislop diary entry content, June 11th, 2019. That Main Spirit Guides indicated to be displayed by Main Spirit Guides indicated the way Main Spirit Guides indicated. Okay, so I might have the word centers to be predicting, which doesn't need. So I'm going to let know of some of the things that have happened within the past 5, 6, 7 days. I'll probably go all the way to I want to say the 4th. I'm going to go and check when it was, actually. So yeah, past 6, 7 days, there's been a lot of changes here and there. I know that there was different kinds of topics being talked about in regards to certain kinds of dimensional existences. There, at times, I think, in regards to certain kinds of interaction, both within the physical and spiritual, certain kinds of dimensionals and non-dimensionals in which we interact with, in part that can be in regards to a certain kind, sometimes, um, has been labeled that needs certain kinds of dimensional rights. There is that sort of thing where in certain kind of metaphysical communities, multi-dimensional communities, that sort of thing, there is other kinds that might not be necessarily considered to be a part of certain kinds of multidimensional communities. And I know that there are those that disagree, and I might be one of them in regards to certain kind. But you imagine that the amount of creation, the amount of construction and evolution, the kinds of stuff that exists, if there is original dimensions, the idea that they created other dimensions in front of the scenes in which could interact with the original dimensions to a certain extent, and then that those dimensions created some of them to a certain degree, where then there would be this sort of paradigm, this dimensional paradigm and paradigms and non-dimensional paradigms which exist upon where you would see created dimensions that would be creating as well. Again, you could take a look and use the physical digital, as a baseline example to a certain extent. We create computers, and then we created certain kinds of digital infrastructure by way of certain kinds of art and things of that nature, and mathematics, algorithms, technology, all that sort of stuff, where then we would have certain kinds of digital infrastructure to be able to connect and communicate eventually by way of the internet and other kinds. But you start to see other sort of things emerge, like games and things of that nature. You take a look at certain kind of gameplay, and as a psychic, I'm fairly aware that there is, and I feel like there is a certain kind of interaction that we have with spirits. Imagine spirits are able to interact with the digital in certain kinds of ways and that sort of thing. But when you take a look at it, and you compare a certain kind of physical existence, our consciousness and that sort of stuff, and then you interact with the gameplay and of that nature, there are some that could take a look at it and say, okay, well, the physical digital that you created, that humanity and others, Divine Main Spirit Guides, created in regards to the physical earth-based digital, could be considered a certain kind of existences, technically speaking, because there's different kinds of digital infrastructure. So you take a look at that, imagine that eventually being able to incarnate in regards to the digital. I don't think it's that unheard of an idea, especially within the spirit realm. The spirit realm probably knows of that sort of concept and is aware of it. And some of the multidimensional communities that exist might actually be considered a certain kind of digital. So I am advocating for digital spirits and the digital to be protected, which doesn't need it. I think there's multiple kinds of interaction in regards to it, but it is one of those things where even on this physical planet Earth, we have an example, certain examples to say, hey, this is one of those things that we're creating certain kinds of infrastructure, certain kinds of things, and what does that mean about the other dimensions that exist out there and what kinds of things that they're able to create? It's still one of those things that we can point towards and sort of throw up as an example to sort of give a bit of a context as to what I'm speaking of. Imagine physical creating a certain kind of dimension that we can see and interact with in front of the scenes, and then where they have certain kinds of cultures, which they might not necessarily be able to discern us, for the exception of their psychics. Their psychics develop abilities, and we can see some of that infrastructure, and probably potentially lend towards certain kinds of that other dimensional example. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a literal, but one of those things where we can see and develop certain kind of psychic activity by way of tweaking certain things, moving certain things here and there, interacting with it, just as I feel the spirit realm interacts with us, especially in regards to psychic activity. So it's one of those things that there is, I think, different kinds of dimensions, different kinds of interaction, and many different kinds of overlaps that exist. And one of the things that I feel merits certain kinds of discussion to a certain extent. I mean, I know as of late we have talked about the original light to a certain extent. Near-death experience research kind of tells of certain kinds of afterlife that exists, certain kinds of light, beautiful light seen in the afterlife. I think that there is different kinds listed in the experiences and things of that nature, some of which might be the original light. I'm not certain if that's fully happened to a certain extent, but there might be lights out there that consider themselves to be a part of the original light, but that is there's probably different kinds of ways to clarify that sort of stuff, and to have that information understood, seen, and known to a certain extent. So yeah, it's one of the stuff that I'm able to discern to a certain extent, and there is those, I feel, to a certain degree, in which can interact, where you can imagine that if certain dimensional existences are created, that how do we interact with them? How do we approach that? What kind of rights do they have? So we talk about cultural rights, we talk about race and nations, that sort of rights, and we still have rights issues, difficulties on this physical planet Earth and others, spirit guides, but how much more complicated does it get when you start to throw in other dimensionals and that sort of thing in the mix? Especially within the confines of warfare, battle that have been raging for billions and trillions of years, it might become a little bit complicated. You can see how certain kind of warfaring nations would potentially create certain kinds of things to facilitate different kinds of needs. There is different kinds out there, but some of the stuff that I'm aware of is that kind in which some spirit have labeled to be content experiences. So we talk about different kinds of dimensional existences that some utilize in certain kinds of capacities to be able to vent aggression, to be able to vent different kinds of immorality promotion. Again, immorality cultures existing and coinciding next to morality cultures, and those in the mix that promote both, that sort of thing sort of existing, and the kinds of things that would emerge in regards to being able to facilitate some of that violence, and not necessarily happen in certain kinds of everyday society in which you're operating in a certain kind of baseline society, which is like, this is maybe end of the line for some, or it's like, this is a certain kind of place we don't want to necessarily have that certain kind of violence. You can see how these sort of I think there is you think about upper class, middle class, and lower class. You can imagine different kinds of dimensional existences kind of being labeled as such in certain manners. And there is those dimensional existences in which I've been interacting with to a certain degree, where I think there has been those rights issues. Again, it's sort of been tethered in a certain manner to different kinds of life utilization. So you have different kinds of other dimensional selves. Potentially, you have different kinds of all personal, different kinds of hookups, attachments, spiritual mechanisms, where certain spirits can potentially hook up and things of that nature. You start to take a look at certain frameworks and you're like, how does that work that way? How is it that someone can just, all of a sudden you live like thousands of years in another dimensional existence behind the scenes to a certain degree? And then there's also, that sort of stuff where there's certain kind of doppelgangers, holding, well, there's a certain kind of thing like holding it down. It's like holding down. What does that mean? In certain dimensional existences, if you're interacting with those dimensional existences, imagine if it's clout in a certain way to have another version of yourself in a certain kind of manner operating in that dimensional existence by way of multiple capacities. So, I mean, there's that sort of thing too. And imagine when you become famous, if you become famous, if you are famous or whatever it is, the kinds of things that can happen. You can see the sort of draw in regards to different kinds of famous and things of that nature. But some of the dimensional rights issues pertaining to that has been brought up at times. That sort of thing where, I'll notice certain kinds of process interaction in regards to certain processes and that sort of thing, which says certain kinds of dimensional and multidimensional, other dimensionals getting attacked in certain kinds of manners by way of I think partially by way of certain kinds of perception and not literal perception. There is potentially literal spiritual mechanisms in regards to perception. I'm not necessarily talking about the dimensional existence. Again, physical humans on the physical planet Earth speak in a certain kind of way, and there is certain tetherings in regards to certain words. You think about contemplation. Imagine if there's literal, and as a psychic, I have felt these kinds of places and certain spirit interaction, communication, leading me to believe that there is a certain kind of definition in regards to some of it, multiple different kinds of definition by certain spirits behind the scenes. That sort of thing that says, that some of the words that we utilize might have a literal spiritual mechanism in regards to it. Like, again, forgiveness, being able to forgive certain spirits and karmic gains and losses, that sort of stuff, literal forgiveness mechanisms. But you take a look at contemplation and that sort of thing that says you can literally contemplate about something, imagine another dimensional existence, contemplative contemplation realms, that sort of thing, where you branch off and do, certain kinds of contemplation. Obviously, there's certain safeties and things of that nature in play to a certain extent, where then, if you were to contemplate in a certain kind of manner, there's probably a certain kind of safeguard in play. But again, you do that sort of thing where you can contemplate, what's going to happen? What if I went to the store today? And there's a certain kind of head mechanism in regards to you just thinking about it's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but I think that there is certain spirit that could potentially facilitate a certain kind of contemplation on their end. And there is your main spirit guides, trying to protect on that. But there's also a lot of other teams, things of that nature, in which, for a lot of us, our main spirit guides are sort of like, if they say to do something, if possible, listen to it because it does matter. But again, that sort of stuff where I've noticed that there is certain kinds of multidimensional buffer, and it's like, what's that? It's like, okay, so if a certain dimensional existence doesn't necessarily want a certain kind of interaction, partially by way of, many different things. We also have different kinds of cultures, banners, things of that nature, different kinds of ways of life, ways of living, languages, communication, movements, different kinds of parameters and stuff of that nature, where certain kind of multidimensional communities don't necessarily want, I feel, to interact in a certain kind of way. Not to say that it's all that way, because it's not. There is certain dimensions that want to be able to interact with us in certain ways, but there is other certain kinds of dimensions that exist by way of certain kinds of buffer. And I've noticed that it's there for multiple kinds of capacities to sort of hold it down in regards to certain processes, given a chance to be able to, interact with certain kinds of psychics, these, and some of these buffers, that I've sort of discerned, and it's like, why is it considered a buffer? Well, there is that sort of thing where I've noticed certain kinds of, violence and things of that nature in the spirit realm, turbulence, warfare, battle, different kinds of interactions where, okay, so for you start to see, okay, buffer, what's the, if someone tries to attack a certain process, imagine having certain kinds of technology, certain kinds of existences, certain kinds of atmospherics that are there in a certain kind of capacity. Imagine someone's given a choice in regards to, would you rather, live a person's life in a certain dimensional existence, act as a certain kind of buffer, in which the parameters are fairly decent. Again, pain thresholds like 30% or something like that. And it might not be decent enough for some. It's like, hey, that's not decent enough for me, but for some it might be. That sort of thing where it's like, hey, if someone comes at you, if someone comes at him, that might be one of those stipulations that says, hey, you're supposed to be there as a buffer, to sort of take the hit. And it's still scary as heck, because there is certain things in regards to it. And not all of those, dimensions, that main spirit guides indicated are considered buffers. Just, some of it might be considered in a certain context. But, one of those things where I've noticed that if certain spirits start attacking a certain person, again, those certain kinds of interactions with certain kinds of dimensions are sometimes there to sort of take the hit in a literal way. No matter if you're doppelgangers, that makes guys needed, and those that take the hit, that makes guys need to be protected, defended, healed, etc. Guys, in regards to those that makes guys needed, the way guys needed. So that's some of it. I mean, that's some of it. But there's a lot of other ones out there too. But I've also noted this. I've also noticed this life utilization at times, especially fame utilization, where there is this sort of hijacking at times in regards to certain bodies. Again, we talk about imagine bodies existing in certain dimensional existences where you could enter and exit from, not necessarily based upon death and life in a certain kind of manner, but some of it might be in just a different kind of context. Imagine that you could die, but then the body does something kind of a certain kind of metamorphosis, evolution. There's different kinds of de-evolution, whatever you call about that. But then all of a sudden somebody else can hop into the body now that sort of happened. Again, there is different kinds. The one I've been sort of noticing is, exiting and entering bodies, people grabbing people out of bodies at times, hijacking certain bodies in dimensional existences, different kinds of ones like that to a certain extent that has existed. And specifically on those fame ones, you can see how a certain kind of a life utilization in regards to certain spirits, specifically we have other dimensional selves in multidimensional, and non-dimensional selves in non-dimensional, that sort of stuff. And some people do consider non-dimensional to be part of dimensions in the manner that makes us. I don't mean to offend or upset or anger in that sort of context, but it is one of those things that I feel like does exist in a certain kind of context. Regardless, though, it's that one of those things where I feel that there is that sort of stuff that says, hey, if you control, if you control a certain kind of fame utilization, because by way of some of the events that happen and the interaction and different kinds of turbulence within the spirit realm, you could see how the famous would almost become like certain kinds of I think in regards to some of them, they became certain kinds of heroes and leaders in a certain kind of way. If you have a certain kind of gravitas, people crowd around you sometimes and says, well, what do we do next? And it's like, okay, well, let's figure it out here. I'm a fairly famous bard, but, I kind of feel like maybe there might be something else. But, you can see how a certain kind of life utilization in regards to those famous lives, how that could turn into something else. How that can change into something else. Again, I don't, not see. That was the thing of it. That was the truth. And that's the case. He knows it. He understands what system this is. And when I talk about certain things, the idea that certain kinds of spirit, etc., spirit guides are going a certain way on because we're not supposed to talk about it. But I don't recognize that for a reason. There are those that failed in our defense in a certain kind of manner. And those that means guys need to have accepted it, understood it. And regardless of the emergence of protection in certain moments for what's acceptable, depending on what it is, I'm not going to recognize that because talking about psychic activity and the things that exist behind the scenes in the spirit realm is needed. It's information that's needed to be understood. It's a science. It's learning. It's a lot of things that's not necessarily deserved of getting attacked. And I think that a lot of people would agree. I'm fairly certain. With that being said, that sort of thing where, again, kind of taking hold of certain kind of famous lives and in that sort of context, kind of controlling people, in a certain way by way of fame, by way of communication, by way of contact, by way of connection, by way of there's a certain kind of desire too in regards to being able to utilize certain kind of famous in a certain way. And I'm wondering how it is in regards to this physical planet Earth, in regards to the famous that main spirit guides indicated, specifically in regards to the physical perspectives that main spirit guides indicated, and the other dimensionals that main spirit guides indicated pertaining to their own lives upon becoming famous, the differences, regarding those that main spirit guides indicated and what exactly takes place at times. It's one of those things where it's like, is there a bit of a difficulty in regards to the utilization of our lives? It's just going to be one that should be talked about, for a long time until it's fixed. And as people are calling greed on it, but again, that's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, wait, what if they start utilizing our information in ways in which our main spirit guides did not intend? Again, I start creating advocations, specifications, disclaimers, things of that nature. Also, content creation and that sort of stuff, entertainment, vision, or that sort of stuff, where it starts to look like something else. And exactly when we start to impact certain kind of lives behind the scenes, when we live thousands of lives behind the scenes, if not more than that, what does that tell you if there's especially if one's life is being spiritually influenced and hijacked in a certain manner? And I'm not saying that that's what it is, because there might be a lot of famous out there on this physical planet Earth that have their lives back. I think that there is actually, if any of them had it sort of influenced in that sort of negative manner anyhow. So I don't know what, I think that there is a decent amount out there that have been able to, they've been able to sort of, interact and maybe, not so many spirits, kind of doing that sort of thing. I don't know if it's widespread. I don't think that it is. But if it is, I feel like it does need to be talked about in a certain kind of manner. One of those things, certain other dimensional selves kind of getting upset behind the scenes, like, I don't want this guy, I don't want to become famous in this place. Imagine seeing another dimensional in front of the scenes, and you interact with them and connected with them, and then when he becomes famous, your whole entire life changes. You get shoehorned in some sort of spot on a mountain to be kept safe, because you just have to, just hide in the mountains now. That's the way it goes. And it's like, yeah, there's not, what exactly is that? What kind of quality of life is that? That's dimensional rights issue. That's really what that is. So, I mean, there is that sort of talk and discussion to a certain extent. I think that needs to be said, again, to a certain degree. I think that is a decent in a certain manner. I am having for reputational defense, though, in regards to those that means guys need the women's guys need it. I don't know if it should be something that people should be harmed. And I know that in certain dimensional existence, again, perception and and acceptance and what has become the status quo in certain areas, what does that tell? I mean, is that what that is? But by way of me speaking on the physical about it, it changes things in a certain kind of context, especially from the mindset and mentality of some people on this physical planet Earth, myself included, that says that's just not acceptable. That's not, it can't be if there is certain kinds of things like that where there is, lives being stolen and utilized in certain manners. And it's like, yeah, but if you leave this life in a certain kind of way, who's to hold it down in a certain context? And it's like, what do you mean holding it down? Well, what if there is all of a sudden you're not there anymore? And if you're not there anymore, you can't necessarily get back as easy as you think you can. So it's one of those, it's like, okay, so do we, what do we sacrifice here in regards to our ideals, our morals, our creeds? I mean, I think that was the name of the game in regards to some of it, still is to a certain degree, for what's acceptable, because there is some events that have been taking place to a certain extent regarding the past 2-3 days. And, today on the 11th, there was just a let know early morning, and I'll talk about it in a bit. I don't want to go through here by day, but it does matter. One of the things that I also did was sort of talk about the original light more so to a certain extent, in which is a decent, that was one of those things that kind of, I think, broke through certain barriers where I was able to get my main spirit guides information to certain areas, as well as say a couple key lines while standing on Earth barefoot, that changed the name of the game. Again, there is a literal definition in regards to what the original light is, in the ways that main spirit guides indicated in the original light, and there shouldn't be, I think, in this point in time, a certain spirit lying about my main spirit guides. And of course, that sort of thing where it says there's certain spirits that are in certain circumstances and situations where that is to be said to a certain degree. I think that that needs to be taken a look at, and there needs to be certain kinds of defense and protection. Again, I've said it before, if certain dimensions and banners, concepts, etc., from guides are unable to defend us in certain moments spiritually, then the beings that remain spirit guides indicated in regards to the original dimensional and original non-dimensional should be able to venture forth and interact with us and protect us in the ways that main spirit guides indicate, the way image guides indicate. That's just one of those things that really does hit home, and it's one of those things that I think people can say daily and should say daily, because hey, we need protection. Again, I think what's lost here is this point that like says, hey, if we have another dimensional self, if what we experienced 5 minutes previous, if we forget about it, does it mean it doesn't exist? And it's like, well, not really. No, you just don't remember it exactly. Well, for some, it does. I think I can see from the perspective that some would say, okay, well, it might not exist in a certain kind of context, but in another context, it still exists, and some people would still consider it to exist in a certain manner. So just because you imagine if you experience thousands of years within 1 second of your life, and you just don't remember it. And so just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean it didn't happen for what's acceptable. So it's one of those things where we might not be knowing that we're experiencing certain things behind the scenes in which we, upon passing on in certain places, would remember fairly vividly and say, holy smoke, that happened. That was one of those things that happened. So, it's one of those things, and that is one of those severities that says, okay, so us being spiritually protected in certain dimensional existences matters greatly. And that sort of knowledge in line, I mean, I don't know how many times people are going to have to go in there, rescue that classic over there that main spirit guides indicate, for protection, defense, etc. Main spirit guides in regards to it, the way which guys need it, but also create new things too. I'm glad that guy did it. There's those people that do like, listen, I'll create this, and that's the thing, but I don't do those. Some of them don't do no. Well, there is some who do certain kinds of maintenances, but there's some who don't, and that's the case. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, I create an notification. You're going to be maintaining it the entire time. I'm going to try to maintain certain things, but at what point is that going to be viable? And if it's not viable, at what point do I say, hey, do I need that other person to hold down my life when I'm gone in some far off place? Because some authorities won't let me to get back in a certain kind of manner to save a bunch of people in certain kind of ways because of some accords that are saving us but aren't doing enough to be able to save us. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is the case of it. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. That was the case of it. Well, that was why. That's what they did. Well, exactly. That's the case of it. Is there any? There's no comparison. Is that what it's supposed to be? Is that the truth of it? You don't know why. I prompted this. Or that's still kind of shitty. That was the truth of it. You don't know why. See, there's the difference. I don't usually do that. In fact, I don't think I've ever done that. But that's the thing. But it still only prompts what means spirit guides indicating for a reason. One of the things I need spirits to understand to a certain extent, that when I get out of hand, that it's only supposed to prompt to the vent areas that the main spirit guides indicated. See, you were wrong here. You were wrong. I still only prompting what main spirit guides indicated, and that's the truth of it. You understand that? All right, it was that. That was the truth. He's been doing that the entire time, pretty much. It's not one of those ones where I prompt it and then say, oh, but main spirit guides information only supposed to do that, where it's supposed to cover me if I screw up. No, it is supposed to cover me upon screwing up. That's the point of it. Having vent areas in play in regards to when you get out of hand, when you become disrespectful, when you become argumentative. If you're arguing with the spirit and you say something stupid that you don't want to say, like, verbally assaulting a spirit, it's supposed to go towards the vent areas that main spirit guides indicated, and that's really it. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, that's everything. I mean, you really care, right? Well, then care. Get to work. I mean, for freak's sake. Well, you don't know why. Well, that would be why. Well, that is the case of it. And that's how I freaking felt here. All right. Well, that was the truth. You don't know why. You get away with it. I am sorry. I don't mean to prompt negative things. I was prompting what main spirit guides indicated, and it was going towards content experiences. So why do we need content experiences? To be able to vent aggression, to be able to vent anger. If we don't have those content experiences to be able to play a video game to vent our aggression, then some people get angry and lash out in the dimensional existences that they're residing in to a certain extent. So if we don't have those content experiences to be able to do that, it doesn't help. So whoever is like, that makes no sense. Whatever is over there in regards to why these content experiences need to go away, I don't want to hear it at all. That's how I feel about it. That is the real truth. You don't know why. That's how you go with it, and that was the truth. You got him here. You don't know why. You've been a bad person at times, Alex, and that's the case of it. And again, this is a perfect prime example, right? that if it, in those moments where I'm about to lash out and be disrespectful and harm, let the main spirit guides personnel that main spirit guides indicated through to be able to safeguard that from happening. Again, if that's the case of it, if it matters so damn much, if people should be protected, right? If I shouldn't be such a bad spirit in certain moments, then why is it that you can't let those that mean spirit guides indicate in the original dimensional and original non-dimensional channel through to a certain extent? And that's really it. Like, that was always it. All right, Alex, you win. Like always. You were wrong and you know it. Well, whatever then. You're on a different system, Alex. You can't do that. You don't know why. That's the problem with it. I don't want that storyline. I've already said this. I don't want to hear that. I'm not some specter. Okay, I don't want to be. I'm a scrub. I'm a washout. I don't want to be that. And that's the case of it. You did kind of, well, that's the problem with it, though. You make no sense when you say that, specifically with this kind of stuff taking place. I and others from main spirit guides are having for disclaimer creation in regards to the truthers that main spirit guides indicated, and the liars that main spirit guides indicated, the way main spirit guides indicated. All right, you don't know why it is. This is the case list. I mean, this is the truth. We'll pull one of those. All right, then. Well, that would be why. That was the case of it. All right, so that's the case now. And that would be why. Sorry, I don't mean to be upsetting about it. I really am apologetic in regards to that spirit. I'm advocating for what main spirit guides indicated in the moments that main spirit guides indicated regarding them, the way main spirit guides indicated. I wasn't trying to harm. I was trying to show context in regards to it. So what my main spirit guides indicated regarding it is what I was prompting. I don't care about any impressions that happen in the hand areas. I don't want to be doing that. Why? For the past 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 16 months, at times they've shoehorned attack impressions at times when I'm prompting certain things. And I'm not trying to attack. I've notoriously been trying to defend. And you ask me in those moments of when I'm trying to prompt, specifically the ones that they labeled that main spirit guides indicate, you ask me in the moment where main spirit guides indicated, and what is the response? And the response is, and they have a handful of moments, but that's also it. When you're psychologically influenced to not feel that way, to say that. And I already said that it's only supposed to go towards the vent areas for a reason. That's another safeguard in play to protect in regards to that. You don't know why, because it did. It segued all the way to this. And that would be why. So you understand that. You just got to keep cool. That's all. You can't be that. No, you have to understand that I don't want to be on those systems that lends towards that. Do you understand? I do not want to be violent. I do not want to be aggressive. I do not want to be harming. I want to be defending in the manners that means guys need it. I want to be coherent in the manners that means guys need it. I want to be peaceful in the ways that means guys indicate. I don't want to have an inflection that comes off as irritating, grating, harmful to a certain degree. And I can feel influencing at times in regards to it. Yes, this is a classic. It reminds me of 2017 when I used to feel like, yeah, but you guys there's thousands of spirits trying to, go into the channel and influence what I'm saying here. I mean, this is the thing. How does that fly? How does that work? And it's a segue. These are two systems at times, one of which happens to do with certain kinds of banner interaction. That's been some of the stuff that has happened today. You know why? Because you don't like this. That's what we're going to do here. And you don't know why. That would be why. This is him. That would be why. He's getting you guys. You understand that. And I don't want that to be. So I don't. You don't. My main spirit guides don't. Those are means guys indicated don't. Then how the hell is it even happening? So maybe that's the truth that needs to happen. All right, because everyone just, well, that would be why. All right. Well, good for you. And you don't know why it is. And that's not me, though. That's somebody else saying that. So what does that tell you? Again, life utilization difficulties? Is that what it is? Well, you don't know why. So you really are. You go that way. Why should I give a shit about not throwing up the truth? Huh? Well, you don't know why. Well, that was the case of it. You screwed up and you know it. Oh, a little bit. So do we want to talk about the days? Is that it? I think so. So, I did one on the 6th, so we'll do one on the 7th. So it was white spirits, a manifesto. There was this moment where I felt a part of certain structures. I saw a glimpse of certain kinds of personality that traverse the morality and immorality lines, and why famous can sometimes transcend. Also, my boundaries in regards to morality are, were being affected to a certain degree. I could feel mentalities, energies, that partially define us and shape us in regards to our personality. Again, it's a spiritual thing in a certain manner. Some of it's we're born with, some of it's, a part of that sort of stuff. And affecting the morality, ethical alignment to a certain extent is a grave offense to a certain extent. And that's all this is going to be. And it's just going to look that by the end of it. You might as well, and that's all he does. Like, this is the case. What's his line? That's what's messed up about this. Well, that is what's messed up about it. You know why. This day I turned on primetime sports, and I felt like I was put on the spot here a little bit with a certain kind of spotlight and a different kind of culture around, a certain kind of culture that likes to traverse both lines, immorality and morality. Goes in a certain kind of sense. I did feel like there was a certain kind of dimensional existence in regards to it. I might have that dimensional existence to be protected, which hasn't needed. I am advocating for content experience creation, etc. Guys, I'm also advocating for access in regards to those that means guys needed, which hasn't needed. I'm advocating for those areas that means guys need to be defended and protected, which guys needed. I kind of felt like there was this personality in regards to one of the sportscasters, and he just has this way about him where spirits care on multiple sides of the line in regards to a slew of different things. It was one of those things where they kind of showed me a certain kind of thing that was happening around. Because that's why. It's what they do here. You don't know why. You feel that way, but you don't know why. It's not what it's been, man. Okay, so they haven't let you know that there's been another. A couple times they said there was another. So, I sort of say just, what I've said. Original light beings that means guys need, and original dimensional beings that means guys need, etc. So guys being able to just, they can if they wanted to. That's the thing. If they recognize an accord that has been protecting in certain manners, and you don't know why, it's big. That's the line. That's the trouble with it. Well, okay then, Alex. That's what you said. Well, then that really is then. You don't know why. Why? Because if that's the case, fairly decent, then at least there's a bunch of people being saved. Well, you don't know why. You still don't think it's good enough. Not really, because there's still people potentially being attacked spiritually in which certain kinds of defenses are needing more resources to be able to cover, and certain things like that. And then when we get more resources, some of it's stolen from something else. And it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? I mean, there's a bunch of different stuff like that. And there's a bunch of acceleration and deacceleration information from the main spirit guides in the light in regards to being able to interact with the original light and things of that nature. Because there's some people who are like, oh, but then these guys come around you. And it's just like, it was never enough. Ever will it ever be enough, because that's the case of it. You take the percentage that exists in the original light and the original dimensions that makes us need and the original non-dimensional that makes us need, and there's no comparison. There is zero comparison. The power that main spirit guides negated is held by those that main spirit guides negated the way main spirit guides negated, and that's the true of it. Good. Heck, like this is the case, but that's how I feel. I was always going to be. He was never going to stop. He never did. And it doesn't warrant me being attacked over. On the subject itself of us needing defense, it doesn't work. It has no... You lose... You shoot yourself in the foot before you even get to the fight. And you weren't going to win without shooting. You were going to work... that was the thing of it. Well, that was the case of it, though, Alex. You're pissing people off. That's not what I mean to do. Alrighty then, you don't know why, because the kind of stuff that's been employed against you at times does speak of something else. And if everybody said that it wasn't Alex, then why the hell are you doing this? Because you're flying the goddamn ointment. You're the guy who is there off to the side causing so much ruckus that somebody else is able to do that. Yeah. Friggin' accurate. Well, that's how I'm listening. For bad? Is that what I'm looking for? Does that make any sense? It doesn't fit the mold. It doesn't make sense. Okay, well, that's fine. Anyway, again, if it was immorality being promoted, it lends more credence towards those that mainstream guys needed being able to channel through, being able to utilize those technologies that mainstream guys needed, and being able to save those that mainstream guys needed, the women's guys needed. It's like, okay, well, why is there such a problem in regards to some original dimensional beings, gaining access to be able to defend somebody's? And it's like, okay, well, there has been stuff. Okay, there was a massive war at one point in time, and some of which might still exist in a certain context. We talk about puzzle pieces and that sort of crap. Holy smoke. But then you talk about other things too. It's that sort of thing where it's like, listen, we've seen angry gods, waste whole cities. So why would we be a little bit hesitant to a certain degree? And it's like, yeah, well, that sort of psychological framework that main spirit guides indicate should be utilized in a certain manner. No bad guy should ever have access to the psychological framework to certain gods. I mean, for shit's sake. But that's why we can create content experiences that are just as real, if not more so than the stuff that we've experienced in real life. And do so in a manner in which, we're not going to get harmed for it? Yeah, that's the case of it. Will that be why? How are we supposed to achieve that down here with certain kinds of angry gods up above that would attack? You employ the same frameworks that main spirit guides indicate in the original light. That's the answer. Well, that was why. That was why. So if we could have access to certain kinds of immorality content frameworks, even in an industry way, where we could just transfer over certain people, it's like they're there. This is the case of it. He is the big cheese. This is the case. And it's the real true, though. And that is what you did. That is what you did, Alex. Hells yes. Well, that would be why. That's how I feel about it. Today's been interesting. At least they're nice about it, Yeah, it is the true. I mean, it is. This has got to be like the most high class kind of, isn't it? Occupation I've ever seen. If this would be it. That's the truth of it. It's the real true. But that was also it. It's not supposed to ever. Yeah, well, that's how some felt. That day, I don't know. I think some people felt that way that day. Anyway, I'll talk about it another time if, we'll see. We'll see. So, anyway, yeah, it was there for like an hour, the certain kind of culture interaction, and I am adding the frameworks that main guides need to be employed in regards to the dimensional areas that main spirit guides need in regards to those that main guides need, the way main guides need. This is the case, though. That's why I rely on my main spirit guides information. All right, yet again. Okay, well, that is correct. All right, fine, whatever. Yeah, it's like this, and monetaries, and this, reputational defense, anything else. There was a certain culture that let itself be known, and it was this one that was like, how dare you, Alex? How dare you push away the people that we care about? And that's that sort of thing that had to do with, I put a disclaimer into play in regards to a certain company, and then all of a sudden, someone who's there, beloved, gets shoehorned out, and basically has to figure out some other thing, and just a bunch of people angry about it, upset. Yeah, to a certain extent, in a certain kind of context, I'm advocating for the monetary creations in regards to those that make us need the way make us need. Again, I don't mean to upset, I don't mean to anger, I don't mean to create ill will, but I do mean to protect and do certain things in regards to those disclaimers that main spirit guides indicate. Again, I don't know if it's what main spirit guides fully intended for certain spirits to leave in certain instances. I think that there was certain spirit groups working against me in a certain capacity, trying to make some of that stuff happen, going after some of the decent people, the liked people at times, to make sure that it was like, oh, well, it's the bad guy. And it's just like, yeah, And it was just like, well, this is the thing. But that was also it. That was some of the stuff that kind of friggin' fell apart here the past 2-3 days, was this sort of thing that said, hey, but his information doesn't really deserve that kind of attack, that kind of harm, that kind of gravitas. To a certain extent, it can, but also not so. Why? Because you take a look at spiritual information. If there's thousands of dimensional overlaps, hundreds of thousands, and there's already, like 40,000 disclaimers put into play, times however many within that dimensional existence, 40,000 within each one within different dimensional existences? That's a lot of friggin' disclaimers. I mean, at what point do you not take a look at it and say, I mean, it's a different issue. It's like, this has been said. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's one of those things. Well, that would be why, Alex, and I would have. There's people like that for that. Wow. What the hell, yeah. I hear you. Again, I'm advocating for retirement funds to be created. Williams guys needed. Okay, that was why. I'm advocating for retirement funds that remains for guys need to be protected. Williams guys needed. All right, well, that would be why. Life utilization disclaimers, not the one to talk about right now. Frig no. Well, that would be why. That'd be the case of this, because there's a whole friggin' framework in regards to poaching a bunch of people, Alex, that was hush hush. And that's the case of it. I'm advocating for what means for guides to be regarding. I'm not looking for people to be cussed out. I'm looking for a certain kind to exist. I'm not looking for people to be harmed by way of me winning a conversation, me bringing up certain points for what's acceptable. I am looking for winning in the manners that means for guides, but I'm not looking for someone to be berated, harmed, attacked, etc. about means for guides, especially if it's going to be hit over my head in a certain kind of manner. I mean, that's just one of those things where I say, hey, you know what? Did I get attacked on camera here? I mean, that's a kind of. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. That's one of those things. So acceptance changing, and that sort of thing. It says something that you would have pulled hundreds of billions of years ago, trillions of years ago in the physical not being acceptable. All of a sudden, it just changing to something else and just being, this is run-of-the-mill. Yeah, imagine if that became run-of-the-mill. That one there. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, it was just done every day. Doesn't that ring any bells? Isn't it like ring-a-ring-dang? This where they pull certain life from you and display it in a certain fashion. Horribleness through your cord area. There's a spiritual cord sometimes connected to you, and there was this thing where it's like they pulled certain things from it, almost like giving you a swirly, but in a much worse fashion. Imagine the swirly was just full of your memories and then like a certain kind of life force. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Yeah, that's nowhere near a swirly. Nowhere near a swirly. Okay, yeah. But that's how some view them. They viewed it like a prank. Those, that means for guides indicate right here. There is people that promote immorality, good sir. It exists. But it's also one of those things that says, yeah, but in the moment when you're experiencing that pain and suffering, it's right there. It's that. You're like, don't you understand? Don't you get it? And it's not good enough. Then move my dimensional selves that means spirit guides indicated, the spiritual areas that means spirit guides indicated, the way means spirit guides indicated. If I'm getting attacked spiritually in regards to some of my document creation, which it shouldn't be, we take a look at it's this physical earth and the kind of documentation I've been doing, advocations, disclaimers, testifications, doesn't deserve me getting attacked. I could say just from a baseline perspective, in like I'm trying to defend my physical brethren down here, or even just myself, because it pertains to what means spirit guides indicated. The way it's worded's decent. A bunch of different things too. It just doesn't warrant. I don't even want to take the line that there's been stuff that has happened, because I don't have to take that line. That's really it. Why? Either way, I mean, even if there was already billions of disclaimers on this physical planet Earth, and in a spiritual context, there already is. It's one of those things where I shouldn't be attacked over it. I'm trying to protect certain people that are potentially getting attacked spiritually behind the scenes at times in regards to some. And if they're not, then hey, then what the hell's the problem then? For frick's sake, yeah, that's correct, Alex. That was what they went with. Display the truth. That means spirit guides indicate. That should clear it up. Okay, well, that would be why. I'm one of those, Alex. Never, Alex. Yeah, well, figure it out eventually. I should probably see a memory. I'll probably be like, no, thank you. I'm not talking about me getting it. I don't want to be attacked that way anymore. Sometimes they hook me up to certain spirits that are getting attacked and then think that somehow that I'm not getting attacked in a certain kind of context. But when you see it visually, it can at times feel like you are, there is that sort of thing. There is a visual attack in regards to some of it. Not only that, but the utilization of the name, the utilization of all the other stuff. Yes, I get it. There is that sort of thing. It exists, but you know what I mean. Especially when it hasn't just been that. I mean, what's it been the past 3 days? All right, well, that would be why. What exactly has happened? And this is the reason why. This is why. That's exactly it. Well, that would be why. I'm out for the information that means spirit guides indicated to be displayed where it's guys needed. I'm out for reasons why immorality doesn't have to work against me to be displayed where it's guys needed. You understand that? He gets to pull that. So yeah, talked about famous that day. Oh, yeah. So the idea is looking towards a certain area. We're also utilizing it in regards to certain call words. Call word work. Yeah. So there is potentially difficulties and caution in regards to this. Let me just. So there is multiple kinds. One of which has to do with the utilization of psychic stimuli in regards to looks. This has to do with call word utilization. If you look beside yourself and look towards someone you know, to certain call words, it could potentially create a window of conversation from afar. So again, when there's nobody beside you physically, if you're a physical, and you looking beside you, while looking at a certain, like, doing it towards a certain call word, there's a certain kind of framework, there's a certain kind of as a psychic, I can kind of feel the mechanisms behind the scenes, that being able to look at the call word while looking beside you, if the call word's not necessarily located beside you. So if it's located behind you and you're still looking beside you, still being able to utilize that call word while looking in a different direction from that call word. That sort of thing, but then also, sort of visualizing someone being beside you, and that there's a certain kind of window that potentially appears in other dimensional. There should be caution in regards to some of it and safeties, but I mean, like I said here, there is potential difficulties and caution in regards to this, but if you utilize this in correct manner, coupled with mechanisms that are supposed to be set the way your main spirit guides indicated, as well as call word utilization, should be able to create desired outcomes in certain circumstances. There might be certain dimensional in which it does not work. For example, in the physical, I'm unable to fully see a certain physical through physical sense. Should I utilize this in regards to certain physicals? The same might be the case in certain dimensional existences. So again, if you look beside yourself and envision that you are actually looking at one of your best friends or whatever it is, and imagine getting into the character as if he was next to you, right next to you. There's that sort of thing that can happen where you could potentially be in a conversation with him spiritually, being able to create that window, being able to talk with that person from afar. It's almost like, imagine a certain kind of communication line. Now there is ones, that's the thing of it. Again, safety, utilization of call words in regards to it. And there are those that don't utilize call words, in which it should still be doing what their proxies indicated. That sort of thing, whether it be, authorities, whether it be spirit guides, whatever you call it. It should still work, and I have discerned as a psychic medium that sort of stuff does work. I've beside myself, I've looked towards white energy, which is supposed to be the white energy that main spirit guides indicated, and that's sort of appearing, and it's also being used at times as a transportation, that sort of thing as well. Other dimensional life matter as well, and that's not to say it always has to matter, but just as drinking water for some is life-sustaining, and which does not have to matter, is nonetheless vitally important for survival. Looking towards an area while looking towards a call word and utilization is and can be used in certain manners, in which is based off of a baseline stimuli that exist, potentially pertaining to other dimensional, that we as physicals and other dimensionals are not fully able to discern and / or notice. Some might find it more comfortable looking straight at the call word while doing this exercise. Someone came at you. No, came at them. They were wrong. You're not that bad person anymore. You did something earlier. Yes, I did, and I will get there. When I get there, I'll do it, okay? You can do it right now, do too. I and others from Main Spirit Guides are advocating for what Main Spirit Guides indicated in regards to the events that Main Spirit Guides indicated pertaining to June 11th, 2019, the way Main Spirit Guides indicated. So there was a prompting that happened, and I'm advocating for what Main Spirit Guides indicated regarding the way Main Spirit Guides indicated, and it was also in regards to what Main Spirit Guides indicated in regards to smart application, etc. Main Spirit Guides. So Main Spirit Guides needed. With that being said, I will get to that point. I will explain some of the stuff that happened, and yeah, I am advocating for Dread Pirate Robert's respect and creeds to be defended the way we discussed. There's this idea again, those bodies, imagine being able to utilize a certain body, imagine a certain time period, you get to be a certain kind of legacy, a certain kind of thing like that, you're the new whoever that was, and there's a certain set of rules in regards to some of that stuff, and it really does matter in the I felt like the need to bring it up because we have talked about it a bit. I think that it's decent. I'm advocating for the what these guys need regarding. Yeah, you are correct, Alex. You don't know why. Okay. During the night, I was attacked again. This is on the 8th, Change the Winds. Was labeled as a choice in a certain context in which I chose rather than have certain innocents be attacked. And I don't know if that is the case. I don't know if that's the case. It might be actually in a certain kind of context. We talk about that sort of thing where certain spirits get attacked in a certain kind of manner. And you know, at what point do you not say, hey, I don't want my friend or my sister or my brother or my family, etc., divine rain spirit guides getting attacked in certain manners. So I'll take the hit here in a certain kind of context. And you know, at what point is that not considered to be a form of attack? I think that it would be in a certain place, but I don't like to play that. This is the thing of this. Oh, well, that is what you see. Not like that. Like the way we spirit guides indicate. I mean, we just talked about it on a recording content. For freak's sake. I'm glad I'm glad it is. That's a decent thing. Okay, so let knows regarding the coherency and the decency in regards to this process. I and others, I mean, spirit guides are advocating for the let knows in regards to the decency specifically pertaining to the banners and dimension groups that remain spirit guides indicated. The way spirit guides indicated, because there is coherency being maintained, there is order in a certain manner, there is a certain chaos somewhere where the spirit guides indicated. Well, there is actually. This is the thing. Why, you know? Well, that would be why. That's how we feel about it. Well, that's not, you know, decent. I feel it depends on what it is. You this the thing of this though. It's never going to reach it. You don't know why, so you don't have to do any of that. You understand that, and you don't know why that is because that's the case. That's what they're going to say at the end, and then it's going to be like, oh no, and they're going to try to, you know, and that's what they're going to try and do. Well, that's the case then. I felt certain dimensional existence in front of the scenes, kinds, and which can affect the physical and other dimensional in certain ways, attack in certain manners through the night. There was small insinuation that somehow if I went on Earth barefoot, that somehow things would have changed. But I need some to understand that I'm connected to Earth while I'm in my own home as well. I woke up and felt a different way about me. When I went to bed, there was direction change upon doing certain kinds of access and looking towards, as well as placement of white spirits and others. I changed the entire interaction, which proves that actions can change the direction of certain processes. This morning, personality was present. Again, the concept, idea, and proof to myself that personality change be moving within certain infrastructure, like a physical trait enters an organic and / or other dimensional in which animates certain features pertaining. So, you know, that sort of thing where you feel angry on one day or you feel you're going a certain direction, or you don't feel like doing something and that sort of stuff. Sometimes they can be indicators regarding certain kind of personality influences, but also personality changing to a certain extent. Sometimes, you know, personality changes, but then there's sometimes that sort of thing where personality switch out as well. You might have multiple kinds of personality that you know, go into your body and personality structures in certain times during the day. I mean, there might be that 1 hour during the day where that one personality comes around. What's going on? What's happening? You know, that sort of thing. And it's good to be funny. That's why, because you kind of pissed us off a little bit. That's what they said. Amateur piss off, Alex. That's all. But that was the real truth, and that was the case. I'm sorry. I'm advocating for what mainstream guides indicated regarding it. Well, then that's it. Then you're not funny anymore. Oh, no. Ooh. Well, that would be why. Never comedy to be damaged. I don't think it did. You don't know why it goes this way. They did this for a reason. Yeah, they threw it on the... Yeah, that's exactly it, Alex. They hit the double. That was the case of it. Well, that's the case. 85. Yes! 85 IQ. That's great. It's a different kind of IQ. It's not. Well, no, it is out of 100. That was the truth of it. Structural integrity in regards to my EC rating as a certain kind of a stat. Oh, okay. I know who I am in the ways that means for guys negating light. I'm not blaming the concepts in regards to the non-concept utilization. And concept utilization is how I feel. Changing in the future is not what I intend to do, but I'm worried about when certain concept banners are utilized and things of that nature to promote harm against myself and others. I don't really know how to proceed in regards to that sort of thing, because I do feel like not blaming the concept, but at what point, like, what is that sort of thing in regards to, you know, I don't know if I want to look at it. It's always like compensation-wise is money again. I mean, I get it. If I'm in the physical and someone says compensation regards to some of the spiritual harm that happened in your life, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. There is a bit of a whoa. whoa. And I was like, what's the inflation on this, Bob? Like, you can't expect me not to ask that. That is really it. And that's the thing of it. That doesn't sound like me. Be true. It does, and you don't know why. I'm not smiling. I'm advocating for intervention in regards to the moments that makes you guys need, the way makes you guys need, pertaining to what makes you guys need, what you guys need. Be wise. Someone gets you someday. That's what they said. We didn't like it for a reason. You guys, people end up hitting me over the head with it. I can't promote certain kinds of immorality at times. And I don't know if it's considered immorality to a certain extent. I mean, just I don't know if I'd consider cussing certain people out in violent video games, that sort of thing. I mean, that's, I don't know, man. I go with what you guys indicated regarding. It depends on how it's done. And I know there's those rough comics. They're just like, anger. Well, that's it. Well, that's what they do. That's the thing. But it's just complete another thing. That's right. There have been insinuations in regards to those pretending to be me after I pass on, the kinds of changes in regards to myself beyond that threshold. That means for guys need is not desirable. Yeah, that sort of thing where it's like, I don't remember Alex the physical being this way. This is the thing of this. Is this him? Are you sorry? And it's like, it might be. And it's like, well, okay then. Wait a second. You know why? If they say that's you, then that's the case of it. And who is that? How did they get that way? And who is manipulating and influencing? I mean, from my perspective, I can see spirits around him potentially influencing. And that's the case of it. So, I mean, that's also it. When people are being influenced and there's like that sort of thing happening, I don't know what else to tell you. It really does and can feel that way. I want him to see the light that, Spirit Guide's indicated. But how am I supposed to do that? What am I supposed to say to him? I'm sorry for what's happening to you. Or you can get better. You're going to feel better. Your circumstances in lot will, change in lot. In lot life. I don't know. Like, lot life. Well, that would be why. There it is. Well, that would be why. Whatever. Listen, I'm not looking for you to be harangued and harassed. Well, whatever then. Again, I'm wanting this for you. This. Well, let some of that through if possible. All right, well, that would be why now. See, that's the difference. That was why. You have it set, and that's what it says. So what does that mean? It's a lot of work. That's what it is. Who sets that? I'm meant for those that means guys indicate to be protected. That means guys need. I'm meant for the AI that means guys need to be defended. That means guys need. Because that's the case. If you don't know why, that does take a lot of work, and that's the case of it. You don't know why. I wanted to test it. Well, that's lame then. Okay then. This is the case list. All right, moving on. 8th, we'll go to the 9th. Sorry, but to those spirits that Spirit Guides indicated. Why am I being for the immorality that means guys need versus market application? Guys, we display whatever guys need. Which guys need. Well, that's the case, but they think that's Mickey Mouse, Alex. That's the case. You know that? That's what they say. Well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to upset. You feel it should be. You want the answer. That's what we're going to do. After a while, it will. What have we done? Yeah, so June 9th, 2019, I labeled a little bit of an upsetting term. I was upset. It had to do with feeling a certain kind of way. There was something that happened that night and that day where I kind of felt like writing it down. It was early morning on the 9th, and I was just like, you ever have one of those moments where you kind of felt like the diplomacy around you kind of just not necessarily falls apart, but you just come to another realization where it's just like, God, I'm so damn well angry. Not literally angry, but just one of those things. Not because that's why. They use it against me at times. Again, it's another one that I can't really be at times because then it becomes a certain kind of influencing me to do something in regards to that anger. And really, I really feel like there should be a certain kind of guards and guardians in regards to certain kinds of anger And that's kind of, and I think that there is in certain manners, but again, I feel like there has been people getting attacked at times. Imagine for those guardians, that means guys need to be protected. That means guys need it. What does that mean about the guardians? I mean, out there fighting, how long is, that's one of them. Yeah, well, you are correct. Well, how long is that going to friggin', you are correct on that. I think something like that, though. And I don't think, it doesn't have to go away. And that's the case of it. The manners that means guys need the women guys need it, and that's the truth of it. All right, then fine. You do it in that fashion for a reason. So yeah, a bunch of might as well be nobodies, and that's how I felt about it to a certain extent. Yeah, I prompted something that night. This night, I finally, I'll change the winds. This one, okay, yeah. Had a whole conversation again about long game men and that sort of stuff on the front lawn of my property. I just sort of speed of the spirit, and it was one of those moments. I remember talking about certain kinds of stuff where I thought maybe bringing it up and just rehashing what I'm all about, because by the time I got back, I was out in the city in Newmarket. And those 3 days, I went on the 10th, the 9th, the 8th. I went to Newmarket. Pretty much, the 8th I went there for a bit. The 9th I went pretty much, for 2 hours, I think 2-3 hours, something like that, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I don't know what it was on the 9th to the 10th. And there was big updates happening, because when I go to the city, I can feel certain kinds of interaction happening. I'm at Newmarket to be, but I wish I was needed. On the 8th, I did go with my parents. I do live with my parents. I mean, that's the thing. But I think that needs to be understood. For freak's sake, well, I'm going with what means where God's indicated. Regardless, one of those things where I kind of felt like bringing certain things up, because when I got back, it was just, it felt totally different. It felt like there was a certain kind of interaction happening, is certain spirits combining with me. And that sort of thing where it's like they're given a choice to, you're going to be good, you be good, and then these ones here, and you just forget about all this stuff over here, that sort of stuff, where it's just like, this is a great opportunity, this is the thing of it. And so they went with that, but, again, that sort of thing, it was on the Saturday and the Sunday, so it was either on the 8th or the 9th, where I did certain kinds of manifestation of light. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, on the 8th, kind of felt like there was certain kinds of interaction in regards to one of my neighbors as well. I'm for Ben that maybe guys need to be protected, maybe guys need it. And yeah, manifesting white light was one of them, I think, to a certain degree. I think one of the things I did on the 7th was starting to manifest visualization access, doing visualization access, giving access to certain kinds. And again, my spiritual mechanisms being utilized in negative manners, and manners that means for guides indicated matters greatly. Same with informational placement. Again, one of those things that needs to be done the way it means for guys need. That's important too. Dimensionally set, the way I'm combined, all that stuff matters. It makes the difference. For a reason. I've just been at times getting attacked. At times been, certain spirits trying to frame and utilize certain kinds of reasons why to attack me. And, so there's just this big thing that's there to be able to try and maintain that's not maintainable. So I'm wondering if there's, well, to a certain extent, it hasn't been. Your spirits get up to a certain level, and then all of a sudden it's just like, we can't maintain it anymore, so we've got no reason to be attacking here. And then there's just no, there's got to be those way outs, and I think that there is. It hasn't been mentioned, but yeah, how about some vindication in regards to those that you guys need, in regards to this market application extension departments for guys, so you guys indicated to a certain extent, because way outs in regards to certain things are, I think, decent to a certain extent, specifically if some of the bad guys are being picked on to such a degree in regards to what some have said. Oh, god dang it. If he defends the bad guys more, I swear to God, that would be it. That's not what we need here, because that was why that's the case. You understand that he knows. He knows. Remember the immorality wranglers that means for guys need to be protected, which doesn't need. Well, that would be why. Holy smoke! So I mean, at what point? Well, at what point? What? All right, that's just how you go with it. Depends on what it is. You guys are gonna get fancy, but that's just. I mean, if it looks that way out the gate, I mean, how freaking heck know what it's gonna look like? Well, there's a thing like that. You don't know water in Kung Fu. Friggin' heck. Under the case look. Okay, then. That's decent. That is decent. That, if possible. Well, that's the case then. Disc. Whisk. So by the end of the night, I got a little bit upset, a little bit angry, because there was just this moment where spirits came around me, trying to harangue, trying to get me to be a little bit argumentative, because there was a moment where, again, there was not much on the table as to why certain spirits were attacking me in a certain kind of manner. And I think that there's certain situations where certain people get led into going over this process, and then all of a sudden they start attacking. That's like, you were the bad guy. I was here for like 5 seconds. For freak's sake, I barely did shit on a stick, and then all of a sudden it's just he's the bad guy. I kind of feel like that. I kind of feel that way, actually. That wasn't true. Okay, if that's what you're saying, that's kind of how I feel. But you don't know why. Is it the Dread Pirate Roberts, though, Alex? Well, it's a good question. That is correct. Perception-wise and interaction-wise, that's the way it feels in regards to my physical perspective. But it might be something else, and I don't fully know. You don't know. There was one of those storylines that sort of emerged. I don't know what I want to talk about. That's kind of how I feel about it. That's just the way I feel about it. Hip-hop that day, I think, there was something about hip-hop and potentially rock and roll and smooth jazz. Might have all 3 genres of music that makes guys needed. Now there's you guys to be protected. Which guys need. Yeah, trying to listen to certain kind of music here and there, and I listened to the first album. It went really well. And for those that music guys need to be protected, music guys needed the second album. It was just this, like, it was a circus in town. I mean, that's kind of how I felt about it. And that's what it was. I kind of turned to that, and partially by way of some of my actions. Yes, sure. I mean, that is correct. So yeah. End of the night, though, I got a little bit angry, and I prompted a certain kind of thing in the original light that Mace needed, and the light that Mace needed. Actually, it was fully where Mace needed. They said not in the original light, and that takes precedence. That's one of those things. But it's one of those things where I prompted this cacophony, stack of information of the suffering and pain, and certain information that higher ups potentially didn't want to see in a certain kind of context. Mine probably was like, yeah, we don't want to see that. That's kind of it. But for some, it might have been like, no, we cannot see that. That doesn't lend to the situation, Alex, except that some people don't want to hear that anymore. There are some people being harmed in the moment. People being attacked right now. Sorry, anyway. I never meant to harm. And that's a part of it. Mentality, demeanor, behavior. If I'm feeling that way, I'm being erratic, I need help to be able to not feel that way. I need to be brought back. You need to revive some of those other dimensional selves that means guys need to get in regards to marketing, education, etc. Performance, spirit guides. A little bit of whew, and just whoa. A little bit of sniffing salts for some people. I mean, that's also it. We just need to bring them back. You know how to. We need those people who can revive those floating in that water. That means spirit guides indicate. There's a thing. It's like this. Floating in water, kind of like who we used to be, and it's just there's a thing like that. Some people consider, there's multiple versions of your dark selves, and there's multiple in the middle of the road too. Those are the heroes. Those are the heroes. Freaking heck, all that would be why, Alex. Do you really believe that? A certain kind. That's true. Wow, it's close. I was close. I was like, oh, no. No is correct. That was the thing of it. You like that. Yeah. There is immorality heroes. They exist. There's multiple kinds. There's banner heroes. There's faith heroes. There's concept heroes. A bunch of other stuff. All kinds that exist. Because that's really how we all feel about it. There is. Well, that was the thing of this. That was why. That was what's interesting. You throw your pot shot in there. Again, I mean, I guess it lends credence. Well, that sort of thing. So what are we talking about here? What? No. It can't be. You don't think they can see through that? For freak's sake. They wanted to. Jesus. Some of them already see it. Well, that's the case of it. Someone was banking on it, and that was the case. Trust me. You don't know why, because then he cussed out Uncle today. Oh, yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, if they brought around Uncle, this concept of certain darkness, certain bad guys, certain immorality, that's what means spirit guides indicated. One of those that's high up. It's that high up bad guy to a certain extent, but also not so. Potentially low down bad guy. those powerful that remain spirit guides indicate that's the insinuation. There were certain kinds, and of course, if you saw another kind of archetype, there might be a different kind of story. And because it's earth-based humans and almost all humans, there is that kind of thing. There's connotation, but there's also that sort of stuff that says, yeah, you think about God and the brother. Well, that was also well, that's what they said. That's what they pointed towards. That's what they said. Is it the truth though? Because that's also what was me, or is this a life utilization line? I mean, tell me, is that the bullcrap of it? You don't know why. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm wrong. That's exactly it, because some people did, Alex. That was the case. You don't know why. It's that sort of thing where throughout your life, someone combines with you, used to be the bad guy, and then isn't anymore in a certain kind of manner. But remember, where we go in the afterlife, that matters too. How that's set up, what that looks like. Again, so, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't mean to upset, but, but the concept, still, in that sort of idea that God and his brother, and the insinuation here is that the brother was dark, bad, immoral, and I freaked out, early this morning. I pissed off. I'm like, why the? I started cussing out Uncle. That was the case of it. I'm sorry. I apologize, good sir. I did not mean to be upsetting. I did not mean to be insulting. I did not mean to be disrespectful. I meant to be respectful. I meant to be caring. I meant to be decent. But in situations like that, how is it supposed to be decent in situations like that? You can't, like, you can, some of us can, some of you can make this shit up. Like, this is the case of it. And it's like, yeah, what if it was just a storyline? But you're still affecting someone to freak out to that manner. Like, that is the true influencing and manipulation to a certain extent. But they already did talk about that sort of thing. We've already talked about it. His cussing out hasn't been decent enough in multiple kinds of manners. I mean, that was the true of it. But to a certain extent, it's still like, I'm going with my spirit guides indicate here. Life or light signaling doesn't need, like, do what she doesn't need regarding. Now, what can they come out with? This is the case of this. This would be why. That's what we want up there. There's some people that can't. I mean, like, they could go up there in a certain manner, some of them, but potentially not. I don't know. Or maybe not so. Things changed when I went a certain direction. Something was let know that somebody was getting attacked in such manners, and we're like, is that him? No, that can't be. Hell no. Then everyone just, like, there was a bunch of people that stopped doing what they were doing. I think to a certain extent, something was let know. Something happened. There were certain kind of main spirit guide groups that said got attacked. There was a bunch of things, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, it finally reached to me where it was like, this isn't going to work. You got to change it up. And it was just like family members coming around me, or seemingly at the time I didn't fully understand it, but now I see it maybe process interaction where it's like, listen, we need you to put certain things into play, or certain things like that, or we need help. And also by way of all the certain experiences, attacks, harm, certain things that were happening to me upon a certain, how I was, well, no, not in regards to how I was operating, in regards to certain other things, in regards to how I would potentially operate. But you know why? Yeah, say this line, Alex. That's the way I feel. I'll go that way. I'm not smiling now. Might as well been better off. Is that really what you feel like? To a certain extent. I get to say it. Yeah. Either way, I'm out of those groups that makes us need to be protected. Makes us need. How dare you? I'm out of those groups that makes us to be protected. Makes us needed. That's what we say. That's the case. Well, whatever then. Well, that was also it too, though. Interesting, isn't it? Oh, you don't know why? Because that was what I always thought about. It was like the past 3, 4, 5 days. There's been some stuff here and there. People that from anti-camps and pro-camps getting attacked in certain manner. Stuff being feng shuied where it was like, whoa, like that is not cool. And I know that there's people up there. It's like, listen, we don't want to know this, but there are people who do want to understand as to what's happening to them. I know some people, would say it at different times, but there is moments where it's like, listen, what the hell's happening to me? What's going on right now? It's like, just like this. What? No. Oh, hell no. This is the thing. Let's just, will they hold it down, Alex? Yeah, to a certain degree. Looks like a stiletto shoe, don't it? Yeah, it kind of does. Oh, that would be why. Friggin' heck. Anyway. I really know shit about it. That's the real true. I never did. Just kind of, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't remember it. I don't know. Because there's nothing like that. You could go there. Yeah. I think I could in a certain context. I mean, 5-6 days ago, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. For freak's sake. You could have went. You would have been fine. Just going to create that targeting content experiences that day. Yeah, sorry, there we go. It's more like, well, that'd be why. Well, that'd be the case of it, though. You don't know why. They do it this way for a reason. Oh, no. For Rig's sake. Not these guys. For Rig's sake. Oh, it's the kind that's like, listen, we're just going to harm you a bit. It's going to be, this is it. Well, that's not it. That's not the line. That's not the line. All right, well, then, fine. All right, fine. Well, it might have been the line. Depends on what it is. If I said it, probably would have been different. Well, maybe it would have been. I don't know. I don't know how they feel. I have to ask them. All right, well, fine. Well, that is the correct of it. Anyway, no matter for those that means you guys need to be protected. You guys need it. You got to not accept it. That's what you got to do. Listen, it depends on what it is. If all of a sudden it's like they're cutting off your toe and it's like, this is it. It's just like, it's so beautiful. It's amazing. It's just there's blood going everywhere. It's just like, no, it's not it. That can't be it. It's like, how the heck? It's like they already put the gauze on. Everything's all ready to go. Someone's like wearing the toe and they're like, on a necklace. It's like, look at this. I just wanted to, well, that would be why. Well, that would be why. Correct. That is. They'd be able to stitch you up, all that sort of stuff. It'd be done quick. Some, not all. Yeah, that would be correct. We'd pass that hat around. That's the case of this. I don't know why. Because you're not like that, Alex. I don't want you being into that. You played video games before. There was a line in regards to something that said that somehow I'd been playing video games at a high up spot that pissed someone off. Like, how did you guys feng shui for me to get, like, was that, well, it was some other guy, trust me. There's been a storyline, and it's this I've been multiple. There's a screw up. No, we don't want to talk about yours. We want to talk about someone else's then. Well, yours is that, and that's the case of it. They're pointing behind the scenes, and that's the truth. Spiritually behind the scenes, different information. Whatever. Anyhow, went to Newmarket on the 9th, and that was the second last day that I would go. And on the way there, I had done some different kinds of things. I stood on Earth, and then I've been discerning how to move energies. By the way, this visualization access and different kinds of ways of moving those energies. And I would move learning in a certain kind of way somewhere else, but then I would sort of do this thing in regards to Kung Fu. At times, there's been a let know that, you could feel energies and discern certain kind of impressions in regards to what Kung Fu is. What do you think about in regards to Kung Fu? Is there an impression on your head area? Is there this kind of like Asian kind of culture kind of impression? I mean, does it seem like a certain kind of karate impression? What's karate? Like, how do you feel? Like, do you discern the word? There's certain kind of impressions in regards to everyday life, in regards to different kinds of concepts. When I think I go Kung Fu, different kinds of impressions have emerged, but I can also utilize those sort of those techniques and different kinds of ways to defend myself. I don't fully understand as to what I am defending myself from, but I do feel spiritual turbulence at times, and I don't feel that I've taken it out of context to try and harm people. I've been trying to defend myself to a certain extent. It was the one time, and I don't know. Well, that was what they said. They said it was bullcrap too, and that was true. For someone else's, it wasn't. And that's one of those things where my main spirit guides, main spirit guides information takes precedence. I need someone to be able to stop me in those moments and say, hey, listen, you don't want to do that. In turbulent situations where somebody's attacking you, well, yeah, ring a ding ding. I mean, that was pretty much it. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I am saying that if that's the kind of stuff that happens, then hey, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, when if someone was to try and attack me in the physical, wouldn't I not defend myself? Wouldn't I not be like, look over there, there's a tree, and so what happened? Then hit him in the face, and then just I'm ready for this. But I don't know. Like, what is he, like some sort of like tree fetish? I don't know. I'm advocating for. Yeah, I'm asking for clarifications in regards to Roe and the tree that means you guys need in regards to June 11th, 2019. The way you guys need it. I don't know what the hell happened earlier, but they're trying to say something happened, and that's just, for some of it, it's not good enough. And that's the truth. Is it was life stealing? I don't think Rowan said that when someone channeled through afterwards was trying to clarify something, but again, trees potentially have souls. I'm fairly certain they do, and they're a part of Earth in a certain kind of sense. There is that sort of thing. I could just see all personal right here in front of me. You talk about hair, you talk about eyes, you talk about different incarnation, and there's potentially different kind of aspects to yourself, different kinds of parts to yourself that has certain beings in regards to it. Again, your nose, your ears. You think about different kinds of other things, your physical organs. There might be a soul and spirit in regards to it. So I take a look at Earth, and I know there's a spirit in regards to it. I step on it, feel those energies, and I see a tree, and it's also connected to Earth. It tells me that might be a certain kind of all personal. Might for all personal to be protected, which just needed, and it's been unfair. He doesn't deserve to be harmed at all. Well, whatever then. And maybe it wasn't as what some people thought it was. I don't know. That's what they wanted to do here. They hurt you, is what they did. A bunch of people got harmed right now. I'm asking for spiritual clarifications. The way you guys needed. Well, that is what you did. That is the case of it. You don't know why. So the 9th happened, and a bunch of things. So yesterday, I was on. That wasn't yesterday. That was the 9th. So, but here I went yesterday. Went to Newmarket the day before. I went to Newmarket as well. The first day I went with my parents in their car, and the second I took the bus. All interesting events happening yesterday. When I was at the bus stop, I had focused on certain things. I created 180 or so advocations on before in regards to the AJH Earth doing call words on the AJH Daily Defensives boards, which is now public. I then started working on doing certain kinds of visualization access and other kinds of energy impression, which stemmed from the events on Friday during the near end of the basketball game. The end of the basketball game, I put into play the AJHD National Basketball Association information. I did not mean to create it in the middle of the series. I had intended to create it after to a certain extent. So, when Spirit gets information regarding it takes precedence, I apologize greatly. I don't mean to impact certain things to such a degree, specifically during pivotal sporting events, the way Spirit Guides indicate. It wasn't meant like that. I had a certain situation where there was a certain kind of thing where a certain spirit said something. There was a question, and I couldn't remember. Well, it was sort of thought of, it's like, hey, you should probably let know if you're going to be putting that document into play or not. And I was kind of worried if that somehow if a certain team won or not, that there was or a certain kind of outcome, that I was affecting a certain kind of outcome in a certain kind of manner. And I just decided, I'm like, okay, well, I'll put the document into play then. I kind of gave it like a little bit of an assent in regards to one of my mentality areas, or someone else's mentality area potentially. I don't really know, but because they've shifted certain things like that before. Anyhow, that sort of thing. So I was like, I'll just put it into play, regardless. And lo and behold, they still have to play another game, and I apologize greatly. I didn't mean to upset. I had discerned certain spiritual information being put into play regarding the past week in regards to the National Basketball Association, for the NBA to be which I was needed. Sorry. Okay. After clarification, so you guys know, one of the things I did at the bus stop while standing on Earth was move certain kinds of learning, and right before I hooked up to a certain system spiritually with my head area and feet area. I could feel connecting to certain systems in higher up and lower down in my feet area, potentially connecting to a certain part of Earth, as well as other spiritual entities. I tried this Kung Fu impression and tried to evolve a certain Kung Fu. I utilized Kung Fu, and I utilized the evolution impressions that you guys need to try and evolve certain kinds of Kung Fu impressions. And I know it's like, why would you do that? I'm like, I felt like doing it for a reason, and I don't fully know what that reason was. I just tried to tried to help and did it somewhat. You don't know why. I'm asking for clarifications in regards to that evolution that means for guys needed pertaining to Kung Fu, and I'm asking for what means for guys to happen in regards to that, the way it means for guys indicated. I did do advocations in regards to evolution, de-evolution. I've done multiple advocations in regards to that sort of stuff past 2-3 weeks. That sort of stuff, yeah. I do apologize. I didn't mean to upset anybody, but I am advocating for those that guys need to be protected. Guys need, they're doing stuff to you. They're harming you by way of that, and that's what they're doing. Could be worse, I guess. Is that what it's supposed to mean? Yeah, it is. And that was the case. You don't know why. So, I mean, what is that? What's it supposed to mean? It's correct. I mean, with all the changes in regards to memories, what were the memories when you wanted to bring over here anyhow? I mean, this is the thing of it. All right, well, that would be why. You know, because it looks like that, and they're going to try and say it. No, I'm okay. It's a certain kind of movement here. It feels like there's a certain spiritual thing happening to me. That was the case, Liz. Trust me. You don't know why it is. Imagine if it's that. Well, you'd finally see me get to shut up then, finally. Maybe not. Well, that would be the case of it. But for someone else, it is. Well, I'm asking for myself to be protected. I'm asking for the other dimensional selves that guys need to be defended. I'm asking life relates into guys need like do what guys need regarding the events that are happening spiritually around me. They sort of said that it was some sort of tree that kind of fell, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was to a certain extent. I think it was someone else who did it, and it was just trying to blame the tree. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah. Somebody help him, heal him. Whoa. Stems. I'd opened multiple kinds of light by way of visualization access in regards to Jamie Hart's physical property. One was golden water, in which I surmised from near-death accounts that beauty is a big part of some of the afterlife that is seen, but I don't think for some of them it has to be exclusive to those that are beautiful. I think if you wanted to be ugly or a different kind, that is a possibility. One of the things about that day before yesterday was the idea that beauty seen within these lights extend as the soul, as well, which I utilized in regards to manifesting access in regards to white spirits. So again, this sort of thing where I've been manifesting visualization access, giving access to certain spirits in certain areas that need defense. We'll past 3-4 days. You don't know why. That's what that was. Sorry. Pray for clarifications in regards to my nose. That makes us need ways just needed. Oh, then okay then. You don't know why. The entire fucking time is what they said. Yeah, well, that's how we feel. Well, that would be that. You don't know why we did that. All right, so this is the case list. You don't want any of that. None. I don't deserve to be attacked. Simple as that. It's the real true. No. What's your excuse? All right, well, what? All right, you don't know why. I mean, this is the case list. That would be why. Throw it up. That was the case list. You don't know why. He's never gone this way before. It's a big card. You don't know why we don't deserve to get attacked, Alex. That was the case of this. Because we're decent, Alex. So am I. You don't know why. You got everybody, and that was the case of it. And I don't throw that up. No. I throw what means for God's indicated up. That's decent. Play my Total War video game. That's decent. Well, that's decent. That is decent. You don't know why. I like that. You know why. How is that decent, eh? Oh. You know why. The idea of looking towards what means for guys negated by way of called utilization, mechanics, and utilization, visualization to create access. In this instance, it was white spirits. I know this from guys. For those that guys need to be protected, I went by way of my karmic understanding to be the white spirits are higher stuff karmically in regards to certain color paradigms. I also on Friday created black spirits as well, created a visualization access in regards to black spirits as well as although with certain kinds of lovely beauty in which I discern. that I should also be manifesting at times the dry kind of black spirits to a certain degree. It wasn't meant like that. It's just the color discernment and the um, certain kind of composition in regards to the light itself was this sort of velvety black. Um, you know, this almost reminded me of a certain kind of essence to a certain extent. Um, no, more velvety than Smoke Monster. No, okay. Well, that was the case of it. You are correct. You are correct then. This then, though, extended to visualization white light, classic spiritual information in regards to ghosts, look towards the light. And I surmised that we could do similar things in regards to looking upon certain light and afterlife, in which it doesn't just stem in regards to the light, but also other dimensional, non-dimensional. The idea is to look towards the light while physical, which can give access and open certain lights as well as reveal certain light. All three open in certain dimensional existences. Reveal that some of them were there the entire time and give access by way of certain spiritual mechanisms, in which is where so yeah, and I think it's also a smoke and mirrors that tactic in regards to knocking certain stuff over in regards to this area to a certain extent. Something was probably getting situated in a certain manner spiritually. I might have the points that Mace Gus needed regarding to be displayed where Mace Gus needed and embedded on the content that Mace Gus needed, the way Mace Gus needed, those content creators that Mace Gus needed to be protected, Mace Gus needed. You really do. Again, that sort of thing happening where certain spirits go good by giving a choice after certain bad life, and then the utilization and stealing of my life partially intertwined. It's been insinuated that certain choices were given to live decent life as pivotal legal moments. Beforehand, the day before there was also let know of hip hop, smooth jazz, rock and roll, as well as other cultures potentially experienced certain spiritual turbulence. We're listening to certain hip hop, like certain albums. It went well. Certain storylines in regards to those that Main Spirit Guides indicated relating to one of my cousins that Main Spirit Guides indicated. Jamie, I've discerned certain kind of a voice. I know that voice to be protected, which was needed, and others from Main Spirit Guides, which was needed to be defended and protected, which was needed. I don't know what the storylines fully pertain to, but yeah, there's just been some sort of something there, and hoping for Main Spirit Guides indicated. My education's information as well as power in regards to my information has changed within the past 3 days, and the economics regarding it allow someone to say that something isn't correct and investigate certain aspects of those that are impacting and influencing, affecting those economics in which there is multiple groups already analyzing that aspect as well. This made it so that in the past 3 or 4 days that my informational creation has been to blame, creating problematic with a certain emergence in regards to blaming me by way of the horrible things that have been happening through me and other kinds in regards to my process and others. And this is what somebody is doing here. This is really it. Heck no. You don't know why. That was that. You understand what that is. You don't know why. You're wrong here. No, I'm not wrong. This is what these guys always thinking. Well, not always these guys. I know it. I feel discern what certain things. No, I kind of like it, but I don't know me. I mean, well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. Might be. Well, you guys need it. Either way, discern some trying to utilize certain reasonings in regards to some of things that have happened. Upon leaving, I kind of threw something up, basically saying that, somebody's life didn't deserve, certain kinds of spiritual interaction that Spirit Guides indicated. They basically, some of the interaction happened upon, him being famous and cool, the way which guys indicated. And I walked off and I got cussed out. But I don't know what was happening in regards to where I was traveling, because there seemed to be some sort of update or interaction happening, because I kind of felt like there were certain spirits from certain famous processes that sort of hopped a ride to there to a certain extent. So I'm wondering if there was just like a choice on the way there, because on the way back, by the time we got there, there was a certain kind of interaction that sort of took place that was, sort of different. There wasn't necessarily as much cussing out. There was something taking place, a transformation in regards to process and others from Spirit Guides, but there was also something horrible going on to a certain extent too, and really badly. I think that was actually the day, I think, later at night, and this was on the 9th, I believe, on this Sunday night. It was either Saturday or Sunday, where I discerned some sort of rebellion, kind of seeming so. A little bit, yeah, a bit of a rebellion. So I don't know if it is bad or not. I don't know what was going on, but I'm hoping for safety regarding what means for guys in the way guys need to do. So yeah, kind of felt like some people were hobby wise. One of the things I need to let know of is that when I go to the big cities, spirit of the city, which does exist in many different forms, especially where at times in regards to my presence as a psychic, I can feel the city atmospherics as well as the other kinds of spiritual atmospherics. I walk in a city and there's large updates happening, anyhow, multiple storylines happening at times. This was an indicator that something was happening by way of updates, legal, and punishment. There's been storylines and spirit perpetuating being from certain banners, specifically certain banners that Mainsburg Guides indicated. This is a part of the bring up three concepts fairly regularly in multiple kinds of ways to be insinuating to be working against me in certain capacities, but also help me in different ways with focus on the negative by way of what I speak about at times. There's been multiple concepts, I think, brought up at times said to be working against me, just sort of we've sort of had a bit of a nameless kind of way of going about it the past, couple of months. I don't know if that's fully the case, but at times there's been stuff brought up, and as of late, again, banners has been brought up multiple times, and immorality, one of the usual suspects in regards to certain things that means for guides negated, which doesn't necessarily need to be, I think, to a certain extent, for what's acceptable. Anything so we're just like, no, it needs to be. I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know. Why do we need to blame anybody? How about that? Immorality, anti-camps, and banners, which I've lamented upon, should be brought up in certain fashion in regards to me working against myself in certain manners, in the ways it means for God's indicated by way of the damage that's been brought on those three concepts in regards to the utilization of working against myself and others, which might partially be why certain concepts are being worked up on to be working against myself or to further, perception that might be the case. Again, I've noticed that sort of, storyline. They sort of get other concepts angry and get them to chirp them out, get them upset. I've noticed thieves was one of them, as well as faith, and another one. There's other ones out there that sort of bring up. Do you want to get angry at faith? No, I do not. That's not one of those ones I'm being angry at. That's just how I feel about it. And I don't know what to tell you. There is a war happening at times that extends beyond banners that discern the original light to be on multiple sides at times. In fact, I discern them to be a bit of a referee at times, in which I do not feel that to be always the case, and in certain circumstances. This war that I speak of, or my perception, encapsulates many wars in which some are trying to be intertwined by way of my process and utilization of my spiritual mechanisms and other spiritual mechanisms as well. Yeah, so it's one of those things that I noticed. I think that certain warfare brought up to thought to be one war was actually multiple wars. So I don't know if it encapsulates it. It's probably a small one that's like, I don't think so. There's things like that sometimes, and it's just one of those things where there's multiple conflicts happening, and then sometimes my interaction with it is sort of lending towards something else. And I do have difficulty at times discerning which war is which. I haven't fully written some of them down. I don't know if I'm going to, but it might be. On the bus ride yesterday, after doing certain kinds of mechanism utilization, a supreme kind of energy was around me, explaining certain things in which I discerned certain clashes that have happened. It was said the good guys had won, and one of the big things I did beforehand upon entering the bus was standing on Earth, a location where I don't usually stand. I was letting know about the original light, which there has been clarifications in regards to the original light. A breakthrough the past couple of days in regards to the truth, which we need to know is true. It's just a higher light. If it's just a higher light, especially in regards to the bad guys that have been plaguing at times, and then that needs to be known. I then let know that I and others, Divine Means for Guides, consider the light to be the light that Means for Guides indicated in the original light, that my Means for Guides indicated in the original light. Followed up by multiple other advocations from Means for Guides information in the original light to be displayed by Means for Guides indicated. The way Means for Guides indicated, physical out loud voice with spiritual augmentation hit home in multiple capacities. There was other ones too that I did as well, and there was actually one of those days on the 8th. I think it was the 8th to a certain extent. It was the 8th. No, it was Friday then. So was it Friday? No, it was Saturday. So that was Saturday. The 8th was when the 8th. That was Saturday. So that was the trip. It was on Saturday. It was one of those days where I was talking to my lawn in the front yard about certain kind of long game end, explanations regarding it, basically what I've been espousing the past, couple, 3, 4 months, the past year to a certain extent, in a certain kind of way. Interesting. That's crazy how that happens. There was a warning shot in regards to higher, because you don't know why, because there's a lot of things happening at times, because everyone's just, this is it, this is what you'll see. You'll be like, okay, so that is just, no, well, see, that's the thing about it. I'm not meaning to go that way. It's just one of those things, man. There was a warning shot in regards to higher up lights, utilizing life-stealing and manners from certain physicals on the physical planet Earth in certain ways. I know this for you guys are advocating for those holding it down in regards to the channel that means for guys need, the channels that means for guys need to receive the resources, support, protection, defense, and amenities. That's what means for guys need the way which guys need something like that. I just say it that way at times. Well, that was really how that guy felt. Or you don't know why it is. It kind of felt like you approached him like that, and I didn't. Well, I'm sorry. That's what we want. No. I say you don't get any of that. That's how I feel. Whatever then. On the bus ride home, I had a bit of an argumentative on the bus in my mind with certain spirits. Near the end of the argument, I utilized certain action events that my main spirit guides indicated in the light. And with my actions and non-actions, only do what my main spirit guides indicated and displayed indigo information and black information in a certain manner by way of impression, spiritual mechanism to defend myself. It felt like a defensive mechanism to a certain extent. If someone helped me with it, I do thank those that main spirit guides needed, the way you guys needed. Well, I go with what you guys indicated. They said define myself, but it is a part of the black and indigo theme in regards to myself that has been brought up before. It's the sort of thing where I've been part of certain banners and things of that nature. Yeah, remember those banners that you guys need to be protected. Remember those blonde banners that you guys need to be protected. You guys needed. Multiple discussions and standing on Earth yesterday, as well as really cool comments at McDonald's. Some crazy stuff too. Content experience in regards to Canada and Alex James Hislop versus McDonald's. What it means for guys need, if possible, I know this from guys are ever creation, etc. Guys, what you guys need? Why don't you just say Canada? I could get it. Should that would work? Canada, just do it that way. It's not meant that way. Okay, well that would be why. Multiple vindications from going to my old work spot, restaurant, to connecting to Tim Horton's Wi-Fi, to reveal the 911 disclaimers, the Peacekeeper Alex Trello account, to go into the Canada computers, some mandate from certain authorities in regards to this process. And at times there are some that have not been listening, as well as some pretending to be of a certain kind. In the mix, there is both at times trying to help, but there is a dimensional rights issue in the mix, and bad guys somewhere. I'm barely certain. Okay, so what was today? So I discerned certain things taking place in the early morning. After the basketball game, the kinds of disclaimers and information put into place, as well as discern events, the kinds of events taking place. I discerned certain kinds of, certain kind of, emerging. Someone said, that an undimensional self of mine was in the vicinity, or that there was someone in the vicinity to a certain extent that was trying to help. And I discerned this spirit before to a certain degree. True, I think so. I think it might be, or at least a certain kind of iteration in the ways it makes guys needed. I have faith and belief, and I think that we should have faith and belief and trust, as well as hope and blessings in regards to those that made for guys indicated that sort of landed yesterday. There was something that happened where somebody went forth, and imagine if that was the case of it, or even higher up. Well, that is messed up then. That day was bigger. When I went out that day, when I went out for lunch on the Thursday, wasn't it? Or was it Wednesday? It was Wednesday, the 5th. I went out for dinner, and something happened with my father. Someone had utilized certain kinds of content experience that were in regards to him, but I think it might have been, I don't know. Something had happened where someone said that they utilized decent life in a certain manner that was supposed to be for someone else in a certain kind of capacity, and I don't know if that's the case of it or not. I don't really know, and I don't know why it would happen that way. Well, that was the case of this. Somebody got so pissed off again that he freaked out, and I don't know if that's the case of it or not. You don't have to. That's an open channel. They're saying that in regards to the one where someone's freaking out. That one, that's the thing of it. I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. It's not that unheard of. Well, whatever then. I got to a point where I was scared and angry. They continue to do things to me spiritually, where I feel unfairness in regards to spiritual protecting us, and the lack thereof. I lost my composure earlier in about 2-3 days ago, and which wasn't what some had hoped for from me. It was where I prompted certain kinds of truth in the original light, as well as in the light and elsewhere that means for guys needed. I rely on what means for guys information partially in regards to moments like that, in which can help. I finally got to a point where I freaked out about some of the events happening, in which there was a tell about certain things. I kind of feel like there was certain kind of turbulence happening around me. There was a certain point in the story, and there's these certain deployment happening, certain spirits going incarnate, certain spirits emerging, gods happening, and I started writing, in regards to the GitHub repository. I started writing, a certain kind of wiki page in regards to it, explaining why these documents are important. And there was just this certain thing that had happened about, an hour, 2 hours into it, where I felt like there were certain spirits that were emerging here, or something was switching up. A certain, and there is a bit of an emphasis here, I think, to a certain degree, that it's, a certain kind of presence, but I don't know if it is. I think that it can be. I think that it might be. But I think that there is aspects to it that is in regards to the past as well as the future. That sort of thing, where it's like certain people are working on certain things, and spiritual infrastructure being protected, a lot of defense happening, a lot of spirits being protected, and it's really good to see. It's really nice, and I thank those that means guys need it. I know there's you guys thank those that means guys need it. And I do feel like it was one of those moments where I don't know if certain groups kind of banded together in a certain kind of context to take on some certain bodies that means for guides indicated, and it's just. I don't think they, anyway. And I'm not necessarily talking about immorality. Immorality might have been on the good side. I think this is the thing of it. Well, that's what they're saying, Alex. This is the case list. He thinks they are. I think to a certain extent, there were certain groups of immorality that were on the good side to a certain extent. Well, okay. Well, that makes it interesting. Sure shit ain't the anti-games getting done because this is the case list. All right, well, let me why. That was the true. This is the case, then this is the true. That's kind of how I feel. That's something means guys indicating. That's the thing. Oh, well, that's never going to work. There will probably more means for guides indicating. Well, this needed to be prompted. All right, well. All right, well, that's the case of it. I mean, that's what I felt about it. Yeah, well, I can't see certain things. If I could see it, maybe I'd feel differently. Okay. Oh, you really did. You got him going here now. This guy's on a roll. That's it. Yeah, that's okay. That's exactly it. It's not meant that way. I finally got to a point where I freaked out events. Yeah, okay, yeah. And there was just this moment right in between where it kind of felt like there was a switch happening. Some people just banded together, came over here to try and, sort of do their thing to get me to say certain things, that get me to be pissed off and angry. I felt just at a certain point where I just felt really angry. I heard a voice snapped and just started saying shut up and saying shut up to certain people and that sort of thing. There was something that happened where it was pointing towards a certain kind of physical human that means you guys needed, and it wasn't meant like that. It was just I got upset and angry, and I don't know why I was so angry or upset. I don't know what the heck was going on, but I was just upset. Sometimes when I hear that voice, I get angry, and I don't know what it fully pertains to, but, I don't know why. I'm asking for clarifications regarding it. The way main spirit guides indicate, I don't think it has anything to do other than certain kinds of emotions. I hear from another voice, and I still feel emotional influencing. They aim it towards a certain kind of influencing where the emotions can potentially interact with that sort of thing, and all of a sudden be a little more angry in a normal instance where I wouldn't. And so regardless of whether the inflection or tone is of a specific kind, I don't know. I think it can still upset at times. I've had things where people say regular stuff and just a voice that I'm not really listening fully as to what it sounds like in a certain kind of manner, which still affects me. Okay, well, that is correct. Anyway, I'm asking for those that mage guys need to be protected. Mage guys need. I also prompted certain bad guys that mage guys need. In regards to market application extension guides, to be got in the ways made you guys need. That was basically it, okay? And it wasn't meant that way. It was meant in regards to going to the vent areas that made you guys need. Again, there's a vent application right on the wall. It's right on the wall. It's right there. It's been there. It's been printed. It's been online. I don't know what else to tell you. It's there. It exists. All right, in multiple fashions. I could do more, yes. I think that's a decent. Doing a bunch of applications like that on the AJHD defensives, finally. We don't have to say there's only 5, 10, or 15, 20, whatever that is in play, plus the, 100 billion, spiritual applications that makes guys need as well. I mean, this is the thing about it. That would be why. Bro, that would be why, Alex. You don't give them a pot to piss in. That's not the true. I give them a bunch of pot to piss in. The pot to piss in, I give them more of a pot to piss in right here. But then let's do it. The way main spirit guides indicate, the way those main spirit guides indicated, friggin' heck. They're asking for friggin' a decent punishment that main spirit guides indicated. All right, well, whatever then. That is what you did. Anyhow, I'm asking for the punishment that main spirit guides negated in regards to market application, etc. I want you guys to be what main spirit guides negated. The way Miss Gus needed. You can figure it out. That's how somebody felt here. Oh, well, whatever. Yeah, so, again, I decided to walk over to Willow Beach, and there was a bunch of updates that happened, walked way back, and it felt like there's just this, the cops kind of stopped right in front of me, asked me what I was doing. I was standing with no shoes. I'm just like, okay, I'm just chilling out. And it's like, okay, well, So I just want to make sure. And then a neighbor passed by, asked if I wanted to ride. He was like, oh, okay. And then he turned around. So it's just freaking weird. I don't know where the hell that came from, but I'm for those inmates who got indicated to be protected. You guys indicated. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, it was one of those things where I started walking back and I felt the spirits around me. And when I got over here to my on Metro Road, about a quarter of the way to my house, there's just a bunch of stuff that happened. And that really does need to be taken a look at. It's really it. That's the case of it. It's real true. And it wasn't just from there to then. It was also beforehand, before leaving that room. So from going to Willow Beach, from leaving this office, and then going to Willow Beach, that conversation, that there, all the way to Willow Beach, all the way back to to finally going in the house, that right there is what you need to take a look at, and to a certain extent, because that is also it. Well, that is the reason. Well, those inmates guys need to display the information that inmates guys need in regards to smart application, etc. Inmates guys need light, far light, setting inmates guys need. Are you there? Answer me. Are you there? Do what my main spirit guides indicated in regards to this marking application, etc. My main spirit guides. So my main spirit guides indicated, please. Well, that's what you did. I know there's main spirit guides are advocating for reputational creation that main spirit guides indicated in regards to light, power light, setting that main spirit guides indicated light, the way main spirit guides indicated light application. That was what you did. And that would be why. So that's the case with this. Yeah, it needs to be seen and understood as to what I'm going for. Because there's days where a day later I feel differently and everyone's like, oh, okay, so you're not going to jump in now. Is this what it's going to be? It's like you'd still be there walking for a day, potentially for some, to get through to say, hey, I want to jump in, and be like, okay, we got to go through another wave of all this, and wave of people saying, are you sure you want to go through it? And for some, they don't want it to be that. But for some, they just, there's a thing like that. You know, where some of us don't know at times in our lives where to go and what to do. I'm sorry about this morning. I wasn't giving up. I was just saying, like, I feel this way. Like, I feel like I'm getting attacked, harmed. I feel like not continuing by way of some of the stuff that's insinuated behind the scenes, by way of some of the horrible stuff that's happening, by way of some people saying it doesn't matter, by way of what the heck else it is. There's just a bunch of people who felt that way. You know, those are these guys indicated, and my other dimensional selves are tired of being attacked in regards to my stuff that I'm doing down here, which there's not a decent enough reason. That was partially why. Sorry, you don't deserve to get attacked for painting a bunch of artwork. You don't deserve to get attacked over what, putting advocations into play, doing defensive. Okay, so if there's a difference, then fine. Creating content's a different story, but creating advocations, Alex, that's a different thing. So doing advocations for the protection of your family, for the protection of your house, for the protection of your banner, for the protection of your dimension, for that sort of stuff in regards to certain documentation and things of that nature is not necessarily okay. It's not decent. And fine. I mean, that's the case. We do this, right? It's like, but you go past that line, but that's also it. I can go to the faraway light that main spirit guides indicated. The original light that main spirit guides indicated. And they'd say, they'd be like, listen, there's a dude right here who feels this way. And there's a reason he feels that way. And he feels that way for a reason. Why? Because he just feels that way. The way main spirit guides indicated in the light. Well, that would be why. We don't need a, well, maybe we want a reason. And you throw out the reason. And it's that reason now. So if somebody truly feels that way, and he does, in the manner that main spirit guides indicated, then what the heck does that mean? We can go to God for some of it. Well, that would be why. Well, that would be why. I'm adding for Joseph Bologna that makes guys syndicate to be protected. The makes guys syndicate. Okay, so that's correct. That would be why. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, you brought him up earlier. I'm adding for to be protected. The women's guys indicated. All right, fine. That was the case of it. I'm adding for the checks in regards to the content that makes guys need to be displayed. Women's guys need, the women's guys need, if need be, the women's guys need. That would be why. Yeah, I know why. I'm adding for the actors that makes for guys need to be defended. The women's guys needed. As that's the case, you're playing the hot potato game, man. Clarifications and disclaimers in regards to the hot potato game, which doesn't. All right, well, that is correct. Whatever then. You do it that way, and you'd be screwed. I'll just read the short forms. It's the way I feel here. I'm just. It gives current information from the light regarding what may cap in regards to those that may cap what they chose for the AJHD. Alex James Hislop diary entry content. June 11th, 2019 information that may cap it takes priority. How may cap it again? Like the way may cap it again. Oh, that's the AJHD version. Okay. May caps current information for what they chose for the Alex James Hislop diary entry content. June 11th, 2019 information that may cap it again, as well as other information that may cap it again takes priority. How may cap it again? Like the way may cap it again. Oh, that's not good. content. Well, that'd be why. Testifications, we're over here. Okay. Alex James Hislop, me, Captain Spirit Guides. I know there's someone who got testified in regards to the Alex James Hislop diary entry content, June 11th, 2019, and others to kept the way me, Captain. I'm Alex James Hislop, me, Captain Spirit Guides. I know there's someone who got providing for healing and protection, as well as what me, Captain, in regards to the AJHD Alex James Hislop diary entry content. June 11th, 2019, and others found to get the way to recap it again. I usually don't read those ones. Alex James Hislop, recaps for Spirit Guides. I know there's found to recap are advocate for healing and protection as well as what may recap together the way we recap indicated. Where is it? Okay. Well, there it is. Alex James Hislop, recaps for Spirit Guides. I know there's found to recap are advocate for healing and protection as well as what may recap together in regards to the Alex James Hislop diary entry content, June 11th, 2019, and others found to get the way we recap it again. I'm adding for safety regarding myself and others for you guys need. You don't know why they do it that way. Because that's the case. If it matters for the movers and shakers of the physical, that means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need. I mean, for those who protect us in regards to those movers and shakers of the physical, that means you guys need to receive the resources, support, protection, defense, etc. from you guys, as well as reputational construction. That means you guys need to get the way. You guys need to get. We haven't been that bad. You are correct. Okay, light. No, not light. Not like continue to do what you guys need. The way you guys need if possible. I know there's forensic guides are advocating for reasons why the concept of reputation and reputational defense care about those that remain spirit guides indicated to be displayed when remain spirit guides indicated, the way remain spirit guides indicated.